The ACC just made a huge contract blunder, and now the Big 12 is going to add Miami and Louisville. Like, it just, there is no other option. This is a Locked On Big 12, Locked On Baylor crossover.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to a Locked On Big 12, Locked On Baylor crossover. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. It's Cameron Stewart from Locked On Baylor co-hosting today because this is monumental news, and he is a national reporter who covers hockey. Thanks for making
national
us
reporter.
your first listen every single day if you do. Let's start with what is maybe the biggest blunder the ACC could have possibly made. Their president, Jim Phillips, which it's actually pronounced stupid if you sound it out really slow, has decided they're going to go to this new bonus structure for teams based on their TV exposure and their wins and losses. And they're going to make more money from the conference based on that. It kind of ticked everyone off, not named Clemson and Florida State, who are already leaving. And then Greg Pflugar, who's a massive expansion realignment reporter, starts digging around, asking some questions. C.W. Lambert does the same thing. Another guy who's plugged in with expansion. Is everything always correct and on the money? Maybe not. But here's one: where there's smoke, there's fire. The Big 12 has a $6 billion valuation, C.W. Lambert says, and negotiations for a new ESPN contract start in 2031. Guess what else happens right about that time in 2030? ACC members, for effectively nothing, can just leave the league. The way they reworked their contracts, the grant of rights, the ACC was like, hey, not only are we idiotic in giving this bonus structure, but once 2030 hits, you can kind of just go if you want. It's only a couple of $1 million. It's more than that, but it's plenty feasible for Florida State, Clemson, Miami, Louisville. The problem here is, and C.W. Lambert points this out, Louisville can't go to the SEC. Miami can't go to the Big Ten. There is only one option at this point. Like what you have to understand is everything points toward what is now obvious: Miami and Louisville. And again, there are times where this is like overblown. Like, oh, that's stupid. But this one's legit. Miami and Louisville to the Big 12 in the span of being a freshman to a senior, like a one college career is now.
Yeah, and I think this is what the kind of misconception was for a lot of people when Brett Yormark took over the Big 12, is like he's not trying to make the Big 12, the Big 10, or the SEC, but he's going to crush everybody else. And this was clearly strategic. Like, obviously, we don't know. We know now more than we ever have, but we don't really know the ins and outs of the contracts that are years away. Brett Yormark did. And there's that sweet spot of 2030, 2031, where he knew that by then he could potentially double the size of his conference, which he's already, clearly working really hard towards. But the interesting thing with Miami and Louisville, and you kind of touched on it in the middle there, is that they're in this situation where, are they the first two programs that you talk about leaving the ACC? No. Mm-mm. Are they the ones holding the cards? Not necessarily. Would they be two great additions to the Big 12? Probably, yeah. And so there's this kind of feeling amongst those two in particular, and maybe you can start talking about Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech and NC State in kind of that second tier. But those two teams, Clemson and Florida State, are trying actively to get out. Miami and Louisville, I think, are okay with where they are in theory, but then they're like, this 2030 date, it's coming here. And if we're going to be staying on a sinking ship, man, we're going to be playing the little songs of the Titanic if we stick around. But if we leave, this whole house of cards can fall apart. Where did we see that before? Washington and Oregon and USC and UCLA, they were as good as gone. They were out of here. But Colorado, Arizona State, they said, if we're out of this thing, there is no thing. And we need to get out of this before there is no thing. And that's the parallels here of what Brett Yormark's going after, because Miami and Louisville are in the same headspace right now.
100%. And if you're the Big 12, 2031 is where you need to up things. You want to make now $50 million per year for your member institutions. That is the goal. And the only way to reach that goal is, say, ESPN. Hey, the ACC is a sinking ship and about to lose its two top schools. Why not send valuable members of that conference to the Big 12? From there, if our schools are now worth $50 million apiece, you start to crawl toward the SEC and the Big 10 and close that gap. Here's another Great point. And if you're ESPN and go, okay, hey, without Clemson and Florida State, they can still survive, right? There's still some strength there. Here's the problem. The bottom of the conference is so bad that the ACC is crumbling now, not in 2030. Now, Lambert says this. Over the 5-year period, 2019 to 2024, Wake Forest appeared in one game on ABC, one game on ESPN. Virginia had one appearance on ABC. And in that 5-year period, 0 games. 0 games on ESPN or ABC for Boston College. The bottom end of the conference is not good. They are floundering entirely.
Yeah, you're already touting a 2-team conference.
Yes.
You're already doing it. You've been doing it in the last 5 years, even with an ESPN deal.
Yeah. And those two are leaving.
Yes. Yeah. That's like you've already kind of put too many of your eggs in the same basket. And what CW Lambert points out too is what the Big 12 can give that other conferences can't, whether you're moving up or moving down, is like they can give you a real fair shake at the revenue right away. That's what this conference came together and did for the Four Corner schools coming in. They said, look, we'll take a little bit out of our pie so that you guys can get at least a fair shake at this. And in pretty quick succession here, you will start to get the full cut of the pie because that's going to make us a more attractive conference all the way through. I didn't love the private equity thing at first, but that's what's going to pay for it. That's what's going to get these teams out of the ACC. It's going to pay for their buyouts, and it's going to help them get into the revenue pot right away. And so that all of a sudden becomes a very sexy offer for everyone not named Clemson and Florida State in that conference. Every single one of them. Boston College, Lord knows they will try to get on the phone with Brett Yormark, but that makes it sexy for all of them.
And your exit from the ACC is sponsored by Allstate. Allstate, we're in good hands. Whatever that's what it's going to be.
We'll deliver you to good hands.
They're going to find a sponsor to help these schools exit. I'll end it here.
Sure.
We'll jump into. I didn't even start the show by telling you what all we're going to talk about. I got too excited. We're also going to talk about beer sales at Big 12 stadiums and the 16-team college football playoff. I'll end it with this: 30 to 40% of the ACC's value is gone. Done. Gone. The second Clemson and Florida State leave. That is,
and by the way, that's putting it lightly at 30 to 40%. Like that's a rough number. It's probably bigger than that if we're taking all of it into account. When you put 2 teams on prime time for half a decade,
you're done.
That's a lot. It's a lot of your value.
Get them off the stage. Bar's closing. This is coming. What? They're coming up. Sell the beer, unless you're BYU. Actually, this is Locked On Big 12, Locked On Baylor crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Why? Because I'm 24. Cam's like 30, and he can attest to also having the same issues as me, looking in the bank account and being like, where'd my money go? What used to be there? Monarch Money is your own personal CFO that gives you full visibility to take control over your finances. This isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. Stop managing your money. Start building wealth. I can find insights on how I spend, like way too much on food delivery, which I should just get in my car and go to the grocery store. And instead of juggling multiple apps, use Monarch as your one-stop shop. Track spending and even plan long-term goals with your partner. Never been smoother to do that. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year at Monarch Money. It's Cameron Stewart of Locked On Baylor. Did you know that Clemson has started toying with the idea of selling beer at its football games? And when the Savannah Bananas played a game in Clemson's Memorial Stadium, over $300,000 was made in the span of a couple of hours on alcohol sales. Baylor to Iowa State, not BYU, Utah. There are Big 12 schools that are missing out on millions of dollars. Keep in mind, this is the Savannah Bananas. 80% of the fan base that was there, probably like the 8 to 9 year old range. Now make it a college.
Few, 8 and 9. Right.
Make it a college football Saturday where the place is packed with college students and rowdy adults, and you're looking at upwards, I would estimate, of $500,000, $500,000 for every home football game for just football. Not basketball, not baseball. God bless, baseball might sell more than basketball as long as it is. there is a revenue stream opportunity in the era of NIL that you cannot pass up any longer. And it's going to put butts in seats, ticket sales, alcohol sales. If you're BYU, God, please don't do this. But if you're anybody else, you have been pinned into a corner by the NCAA and by the way college football and college athletics has gone that you can't not do it anymore.
Yeah, I think that last point is what kind of bugs me so much. It's like, We're literally doing anything. We'll make crappy T-shirts with your player's name and number on the back. Like, we'll do anything to get into this NIL fund, and to the point where we will text you and email you and ask you to donate to it. But it's like, man, I'll donate to you $30 to $40 every Saturday I'm there if you just sell some beer, man. And like, I get what Baylor's going for. I guess I think it's a little outdated in 2025, but this is a weird thing around college football, because if you had told me that TCU sells beer and Iowa State does not, I'd be like, that's bizarre. So it's not just Baylor, but it's something that we've talked about at Baylor in particular for a few years, of helping out that atmosphere. And every time people say sell beer, just sell beer. And I think that's probably overblown from an atmosphere standpoint, but it does add a ton to your NIL, which you cry poor for all the time. And it does add to the experience. I know some people don't want to. I know some people don't understand, drinking at sporting events. And there are some people that drink so much at sporting events, I don't even know why they do it, like why they even go and spend the money. But like, it does enhance an atmosphere. It does get a lot of students who are of age to go to the game that probably normally wouldn't go. And for a school like an Iowa State or a Baylor, that's not, UT going to pack them in 100,000 every weekend. That's a big time help. But to the original point, Drake, it's like, what are the excuses? Like, why not?
Yeah. You already have plenty of security. And at Baylor, I get that maybe the easiest job.
Other schools can figure out like fake ID stuff. So I don't want to hear that. Other schools figure that out just fine. There's like three schools in the Big 12 that don't do it.
You're paying the people who wear the bright yellow shirts, the bright green shirts, to be your security. It's not my fault they're typically bad, but also the only thing they have to deal with is, what if the kids storm the field this game? Outside of that, you're pretty much in the clear. You're pretty okay at a Baylor game. You don't see too many one fan. There may be one fan, and everybody knows who it is, that gives you an issue of your security at a Baylor game. And outside of that, like you're just maybe
Steven from Virginia is just always causing a ruckus at these games, man.
Maybe you're playing with fire. Yes. Okay, sure. You're playing with fire. That's the case you want to make. Like, oh, what if somebody gets drunk? Boss man, have you see the tailgates that you allow right outside the city? I mean, I've been to Ames, Iowa to a football game. The river flows with just hops. Like they're brewing it on campus. They have a brewery on campus.
And I wonder if there's no beer at the game, will people not drink after the game? Like, well, they won't drink on a Saturday night, right? You want to deal with the problem of drunk college kids on a Saturday night.
Can I make a bad point here? And this.
Yeah, sure. We love that. That's why we come here every day.
You can disagree with this, but this is a tough point because it doesn't work for all crimes and all vices. But I went to college with them, hundreds of them. I've been to Utah games and seen this, Iowa State games. People are getting so hammered pregame to ride the high, to ride that buzz throughout the game. So not only are you losing money, now you're getting the worst of these people at their peak during kickoff where they can't even stand. And within a quarter, they're like, oh, shoot, if I don't get water, I'm going to pass out. Then we're going to have a huge issue. Not to say, like, I'm not trying to make it like for health purpurposes, please sell beer during
these kids by selling beer. Yeah. I get you.
But that is the case for again, where I went to college at Baylor. They would sneak a couple of the fireball shooters in their boots anyway. They're gonna find a way to get it in. They're gonna find a way to get it in, and they can't even stand by the time they get in there because they're like, oh, well, I can't drink when I'm there, so I've got to get completely blasted pregame. Is that something that we should condone as a conference? Not condone, no. But now you have an opportunity to be like, hey, look, the TCU sells $3 beers up to an hour before their games to get fans in the seats earlier. And guess what? It works.
Brilliant.
Like people said, they show up, that they $3 be like, yes, I'm going to get there early and give you my money.
To the point of like, we don't condone this as a conference. It's like, when you think of the Big Ten, you don't think like, oh, that's just the conference where everyone gets drunk at the football games. The SEC or the ACC, like that's not what you're going to think of the conference as anyway. And you're probably not going to think that way about Baylor or any individual school, right? Like I've been to a couple of UT football games. I think I'm not thinking like, oh, what a trashy place. All they do is have their students drinking beer. Like it's just, that's a sporting event, man. That is what it is. And again, back to the point of like, when you're begging us for money and we do want to help out, like that is a way for us to help out. We'll buy some beer at the games. It's just, I don't know. It's just standing on the wrong soapbox, I think, to say that we shouldn't be selling beer at these games. And I know for Baylor fans, I'm not sure about Iowa State, but the real hypocrisy with Baylor is the fact that you can drink alcohol in the stadium. You just need to be rich enough to do it.
Yep. There it is. Uh-oh. The quiet part out loud. There is a tap.
I mean, we know.
Yep. Utah's got the same little like, hey, if you've got enough money, you can have as much beer as you want here. You're giving the
sitting
school
in the right seats, sitting in the suites.
Like, what about the kids giving you $55,000 per year in tuition alone? That's not enough. Like,
you should get a free beer with that. At least one.
And that I wasn't even necessarily going to hang a hat on that point, but yes, they're already giving beer to other people because they have the money. The donors that can bring their own coolers in and do whatever they want. They flew there on their private jet. We have not, and we will not make the case in this conversation that it makes the atmosphere better. That's like that's the eighth thing on the totem pole. That's the eighth. Yeah,
that's what I was trying to get to earlier. Yeah, it's just does it make it better? Yeah, but it's not. Like just selling beer doesn't mean you're going to have a great crowd, and it doesn't mean you're going to have a hostile crowd necessarily. Like we can all look at that UT Georgia game last year, but it doesn't mean it's going to lead to that either. It's just a weird thing to not be doing in 2025, in my opinion. Anyway,
yeah. Sorry. Coming up, 16-team playoff where the SEC has more money, so they just get more teams. Locked on Big 12, Locked on Baylor, Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day. So this one's a doozy. Ross Dellinger all over it. 16-team playoff is where we're going in college football because the SEC and the Big Ten want to, and they don't care about your feelings. They're going to do it. Mario Cristobal makes a great point. Head coach of Miami. Granting spots makes zero sense. Football's never been about gifting. It's about earning. Jim Phillips, who I don't think is that good of a commissioner over the ACC, was like, hey, what happened to fairness in college football? Is it just the SEC has more money, so they get to have automatically 4 teams, and the Big 12 gets 2? That's the model they're proposing. 4 teams in the Big 10, 4 for the SEC, 2 for the ACC and Big 12, and then 3 automatic qualifiers with a group of 5. The group of 5 really gets screwed here. We're going to have to bow to the will of the SEC and the Big 10, but I don't understand what the Massey rating had the Big 12 for the last 5 years at the second best conference in college football. What? Because we have less exposure? Because we have less money? That means that we can't get as many automatic qualifiers. It's one more feather in the cap of unfairness in college football.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. And when we're on the path towards what we're going towards in terms of how these conferences are going to break down, like that's not a good deal for the Big 12. I know a lot. I talked about this last week on my show, and there's a lot of people in the comments saying, well, we only got one team in the 16 team last year, so this is a good deal for us. It's not. Like, let the meter run. Let's let this play out. And, maybe next year we'll only have one team, or maybe the year after that. But in a couple of years, it's going to be the Big 12 and the SEC, and then it's going to be us and 50 feet of crap. And now you want just 2 teams in there, and it's like, I don't even know what this phenomenon is called. It's like the chicken or the egg thing, right? Because then people are like, well, you only had one team in there last year, and it was a pretty good year for the Big 12. And it's like, yes, that's because the bias is already there. The bias is already in play. Like we're still battling uphill against this. I wouldn't take this deal at all, and I don't think the Big 12 would. But it just takes away from the integrity of our great sport. It's the whole point of this playoff when it was introduced as a 4-team playoff more than a decade ago was to earn it on the field. And here we are just moving less and less or moving farther and farther away from that ideal. We're now trying to do as much as we can to not earn it on the field. I don't mind the whole little, playoff structure, the mini playoff structure they put in before the playoffs with these conferences and their last bids.
That one's fun.
It's not like, again, that's just moving away from the ideals that were what the college football playoff was based on. Like at this point, you might as well go back to the BCS.
It wouldn't. Maybe I haven't thought about this. This is just off. This is off the dome. So it could be. This could be really, really idiotic. I don't hate your conference having an 8-team playoff at the end of the season, which would be fascinating to me. Right now, BYU can't complain. Now, Baylor, who's red hot, actually has an opportunity, right? Because Baylor was a different team their last 9 games compared to the first 3. Or Texas Tech, who became a different team their last 4 or 5 games. Now, let's play Baylor. Now, those schools have an opportunity in an 8-team playoff, 8 versus 1. Hey, we can go beat Arizona State. That's freaking awesome. And now we get to the end of this.
Yeah,
thing.
like the Baylor situation. Like, wouldn't you want another shot at Colorado? We played them early in the year, the Hail Mary and everything. We weren't the same team. I'd want another shot at them, or BYU, or vice versa. Yeah, I like that.
So I don't hate,
a lot, but
we because it was the round robin Big 12 thing where you make one misstep. That was the problem with the BCS. You make one misstep. And you're out. You're done. You're Oklahoma State against Iowa State. You're screwed. You're out of the. Yeah. And people are like, well, you're diluting the regular season. No, you're just giving an elite team an opportunity to make one mistake, but still prove they're the best team in college football. Yes.
Well, yeah. Well, in this case, to actually support your point here, if that's what you want to do, the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season, you make this play-in kind of tournament. Like you are. I guess on paper, you're diluting a little bit of the regular season, but half the teams are out. Half the teams are out of it. So you need to still earn your spot. It's not like we're, playing 6 weeks and then, 6 weeks of everybody else playing each other. It's not that. It's 8 or 6 or however you want to do it. I could see that.
Well, and you think about it, there are teams that play 3 games in the college football playoff, 4 maybe if you're in that play-in bracket, and you play your conference championship game. You can play 5 postseason games. I believe my math might be wrong there. It could be 4. So my case here is 3 games in your conference tournament. Now the eighth best team, and in the SEC, the 8th best team is kind of ass cheeks. It's Vanderbilt at this point. And in the Big 12, the 8th best team any given year is like, shoot, that's Texas Tech. And they're still pretty. Shoot, that's Kansas State, and they're still pretty. Or that's Colorado. So
Kansas last year, the run they were going on,
yeah. And now you've built 8 teams, all have an opportunity. Like college basketball is regional. Everybody's got at least a fighter's chance. Get down to the conference championship game. You're playing for home field advantage. The winner gets home field in the playoff. The loser still makes the playoff. Now you're represented by 8 schools from the Power 4, and then you can sprinkle in 2 if you want to from the Group of 5 or whatever, however you want to do it. But I don't hate the idea that I've come up with right now.
And you know what else it helps too is even in the structure that we have right now of the 12-team playoff, it hurts this thing. But what you are proposing actually props up the conference championship game. Right now, I'm not saying they're worthless, but with the new 12-team playoff, it's as useless as it's been in a while, right? Because, the ACC, both those teams were going to get in, right? To take a lesser conference. But this way, you've built it up. You've won 2 games to get there. Like that instantly props up your Big 12 championship game, props up the fan bases. Now you're into this thing. You want to travel much like you would for a conference tournament in basketball, or actually probably more akin to like, a first round matchup in the NCAA tournament in basketball versus an Elite 8. Now you've got people in. They've been talking about this for weeks. They're all on board. They're traveling. They're watching on TV. They're donating money. Like that's what your Big 12 championship game becomes at that point, because like there's still a lot on the line. Like you said, you're playing for a home field advantage in the playoff. You feel like you're halfway to where you want to be. It's still a big time championship. It's like going to the Final Four, right? You raise a banner, Big 12 champions. I think that props up your own conference's championship game more than any of these other playoff structures do.
namely when the 7 seed plays the 3 seed. And everyone is like, and that's any conference. When now Ole Miss got to prove, hey, we were hot. Tennessee got to prove we deserve to be in the college ball playoff. You find equity in inviting 2 teams from each conference instead of 4 from one, 5 from one from the other. Now you get to see a level playing field amongst the Power 4, which has separated itself far and away from the group of 5. I made this case on a show last week, and I'll keep it tight. Western Kentucky, in 10 years ago, Western Kentucky had 5 guys that could have started at the SEC. Out of 22, it doesn't amount to much. You're gonna get beat. It doesn't amount to much. Today, they have 0. Why? Because those 5 guys now have the opportunity in the transfer portal to leave. So the rich have gotten richer. The best of college football is as good as it's ever been because of that. So with that in play, I'm sorry, group of 5. I don't need to see more than 1 or 2 teams in there. I just don't. Because but also to that point, I mean, it does allow a Western Kentucky to still have a pretty good shot. Like if all the conferences are doing this and you've got a conference champion in there, and let's just say, a team from a lower conference, let's just say it's San Diego State. Right. And they've beaten a couple of teams. Maybe one of them's ranked in the Mountain West, and they lose to Boise State in the conference championship game. Now they all of a sudden have some recognition. Now you have a resume where it says, well, they won back-to-back playoff games. They won by 4 touchdowns. They beat this team, UNLV, that we thought was really strong earlier in the year, and they were a candidate for this spot. So it does help out those kinds of programs. And I'm not in this fantasy world where a bunch of guys are staying at Western Kentucky because they have a shot to finish 4th in Conference USA and win the conference rather than going to the SEC. But it might make that next guy think a little bit longer of, well, you know what? Why don't I play some big games here and then see where I can go next year rather than this year. So I think that actually does help the playing field a little bit. It's not going to change the power at the top, but it does give a legit shot to other teams that wouldn't have it. And it says to the guy, Jim from Groesbeck, he's like, well, dilute the regular season. We can't go back. The regular season's not what it was. Clemson made the playoff last year despite a crappy regular season. That we cannot go back. So why not raise the stakes of the postseason? Make the postseason stronger. If we cannot go back and make the regular season matter anymore, the BCS era, it mattered at its peak. We can't.
Yeah. It's either this or go back to 4 teams.
Yeah. Well, so now we just
if you want the regular season, then I get that. But
we raise the stakes of the postseason in some sort of appeasement now that the regular season has certainly been diluted. What can people find of your stuff? YouTube, wherever you find your podcast, usually. It's your team every day. At Real Cam Stewart on Twitter, at Lock.Baylor. I don't have a Blue Sky yet. Don't have a Threads yet. He's on Truth Social, ladies. This has been, it always will be, Locked On. Only. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Plenty of fish. A crossover with Baylor and Dose Grande.